Namaste Saraswati. Text number 36. Dyutam chaletam asmi tejas tejas vinamaham jayosmi vyavasayosmi sattvam sattvatam aham. Translation Srila Bhagavad-gītā. I am also the gambling of cheats and of the splendid and the splendor. I am victory, I am adventure, and I am the strength of the strong. Text number 37. Vrishninam Vasudevosmi Pandavanam Dhananjayah Muninam Abhi Aham Vyasaha Kavinam Ushana Kavihi. Of the descendants of Vrishni, I am Vasudeva, and of the Pandavas, I am Arjuna. Of the sages, I am Vyasa, and among great thinkers, I am Ushana. Text 38. Dando Damayatam Asmi Nitir Asmi Jigisatham Maunam Taivasmi Kuhyanham Jnanam Jnanavatam Aham. Among all means of suppressing lawlessness, I am punishment, and of those who seek victory, I am morality. Of secret things, I am silence, and of the wise, I am the wisdom. Hare Krishna. So here we see that how Krishna is telling Arjuna his various opulences to show how great he is. In text number 36, we see that he says that there are many kinds of cheaters, and I am the gambling of cheats. We see that many people are involved in the gambling activities, and he says that he is the cheater of all the cheating process. Now, generally, gambling is not a straightforward game. It is always involves cheating. So Krishna says that I am the greatest of all the cheaters. So in effect, that means that Krishna is much more deceitful than any other man. And that representation of cheating is Krishna himself. Because without the ability to cheat, it is difficult to win a gambling game. And that art also comes from Krishna. And see, actually everything originates from Krishna. And he is the cause of all causes. So even that art of cheating also comes from Krishna. And if Krishna chooses to deceive a person, no one can surpass him in that deceit. So his greatness is also not that one-sided, but it is all-sided. Now we see that how in Mahabharata also, how Shakuni made a lot of maneuvers, cheated the Pandavas in the gambling this thing. But ultimately, the Lord ensured victory for the Pandavas. So Krishna is the greatest of all cheats. Then he says that he is the splendid of the splendor. Now, splendor is something that is very, very extraordinary that we see. For instance, the rose, if we take, the rose has got its beauty because of there is something extraordinary within that rose flower. That splendor comes from Krishna. And because of that only, that rose has got that attractiveness. That's what he says, and the splendid of the splendid and the splendor. So in that splendor, the splendid comes from Krishna only. That is why the rose looks attractive. Then he says that among the victory, he is the victory, among the victorious. Now, if we see Sanjaya after hearing Bhagavad-gītā from Vyasadeva, through the mercy of Vyasadeva, he concludes the Bhagavad-gītā by saying in chapter 1878, which I will repeat again at the end of the class. He says that wherever there is Krishna, there is and wherever there is Arjuna, there is always victory. Then again, Krishna says that I am adventure. People normally go for adventure in, say, for example, trekking, which is very popular these days. So that art The art of trekking also comes from Krishna, not that everybody gets that skill. Some few who have that skill also comes from Krishna. Then he says that I am the strength of the strong. Now, everybody requires some sort of a strength to do a particular activity. Now, for example, we see that in Mahabharata, there's an example given that Bhima had the strength of as many as 10,000 elephants. And only Jarasandha had that strength. And apart from that, Bhima had that strength had that capacity to fight with Jarasandha. That strength which Bhima had, that comes from Krishna. That's what he says, that I am the strength of the strong. And even when Krishna was a small boy, he lifted the Govardhana hill. And this part, it's not possible for us to even lift one small pin in our hand and hold it. It will fall down the moment we leave it as it is. But Krishna held this Govardhana hill for 7 days and 7 nights with the small little finger of his left hand. So that shows that Krishna has got this quality, and he manifests these qualities in his devotees also. This is the strength of the strong. In text number 37, Krishna says that of the descendants of Vrishni, I am Vasudeva. Now here there is a mention of what actually Vasudeva means. Actually, Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and all his expansions, how he expands is Krishna expands as Balarama. From Balarama, he further expands into other incarnations and so forth. So, if we see even all the incarnations like Mahavishnu and Garbhodakasaya Vishnu and Kshirodakasaya Vishnu, etc., Krishna first expands as Balaram. From Balarama, he expands into quadruple expansion, which is called Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. And from that Sankarshana, he further expands into quadruplet expansion, that is Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. So Krishna's first expands is Baladeva. And so here it is mentioned that both Lord Krishna and Baladeva appeared as Vasudeva, as sons of Vasudeva. They were all sons of Vasudeva. So both of them can also be called as Vasudeva. There is from another point of view, it is mentioned that because Krishna never leaves Vrindavan, Krishna always plays with his cowherd boys and girls in Vrindavana. So whatever forms that he expands further, they are all expansions of Balarama. So he does not perform the other activities directly, he performs through Balarama. So therefore, when we say Vasudeva, that also means Balaram, because everything exists in Balaram only. Another important point is that Vasudeva himself is Krishna's immediate expansion. So Vasudeva is not different from Krishna. So all the expansions that come from Vasudeva, they are all not different from Krishna. So in a sense that when we say Vasudeva, in this particular verse, it refers to Balaram or Baladeva, because he is the original source of all incarnations, and he is the sole source of Vasudeva also. Then there is Srila Prabhupada mentions in the purport that there are two types of expansions of Krishna. One is Kala, and which further expands as Swamsa, and the other one is Vipinamsa. The immediate expansions of the Lord are called Swamsa, and the separated expansions called Vibhinnamsa. Now, Paramatma, for example, is a Vibhinnamsa part of the Lord, whereas Paramatma is a Swamsa, that is a personal expansion of the Lord, and the Vibhinnamsa are the living entities like us. There is a quote from Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd canto, which gives further detailed explanations on this particular thing. The different manifestations of the Lord, he is one, but he has become many. He divides himself into two different expansions. One is called Kala, and the other called Vibhinnamsa. Ordinary entities, jivas, like for example, jivas like us are called Vibhinnamsa expansions. And the unlimited expansions of the Vishnu Tattva. Lord has got many tattvas, and Examples are Vamana, Govinda, Narayana, Pradyumna, Vasudeva, Sankarshana, which I mentioned at the beginning of the class. They are all called Swamsa Kala. Swamsa refers to direct expansion, and Kala denotes an expansion of the original Lord. So Lord's first expansion is Balarama. So that Balarama actually becomes Swamsa. And Kala denotes an expansion of the Lord. So Baladeva is an expansion of Krishna. And from the Baladeva comes the next expansion called Sankarshana. Therefore, Sankarshana is called Kala and Baladeva is called Swamsa. And Vibhinna Amsa are separated living entities like us, who are separated part and parcel of the Lord. Though we are part and parcel, we are separated. Whereas the Vishnu Tattvas are direct part and parcel of the Lord. They are not separated from the Lord. The next quality that is given is, among the sons of Pandu, Arjuna is famous as Dhananjaya. Now, he is the best of men and therefore represents Krishna. Now, Yudhishthira wanted to perform a lot. We see in Mahabharata, Yudhishthira wanted to perform a big sacrifice. So, for which a lot of wealth and ingredients were required. And it was Arjuna who went all around the globe and then collected that wealth. And that is why he is called Dhananjaya. Dhananjaya means he is a conqueror of wealth. The next quality that is mentioned is, of the sages, I am Vyasa. So, among the munis or learned men who are conversed, those who are learned in scriptures are very knowledge, they are called munis or saintly personalities. And of them, Vyasa is the greatest because it is he who explained the Vedic knowledge in many different ways for the understanding of the common man, particularly in the age of Kali. He compiled so many Vedic literatures. And in Bhagavad-gītā itself, Sanjaya admits at the end of after hearing Bhagavatam, that he could hear the message of Krishna by the mercy of Vyasadeva. So Vyasadeva compiled several Puranas, Upanishads, etc. At one point of time, even after compiling all these literatures, he was feeling despondent. So Narad Muni, his spiritual master, instructed Vyasadeva to compile the essence of all scriptures that can give devotion to Krishna. And that is how Srimad Bhagavatam was compiled. In turn, Vyasadeva gave this knowledge to his own son, Sukadeva Goswami. One time, Narad Muni visits the Pandavas in Indraprastha, when the Pandavas were in exile. And Yudhishthira Maharaj asked several questions. And there were 4 questions that were asked by Narad Muni to. This was not in exile when Yudhishthira Maharaj was actually ruling the kingdom. Narad Muni visits the palace and he asks Yudhishthira Maharaj 4 questions. He says, Yudhishthira, he says how the citizens felt happy about his ruling, whether he is treating all the citizens properly, etc. And then he says, study of the Vedas was okay. Knowledge of the philosophical portions of the Shastras, acquisition of wealth and married life, whether they were fruitful. And so when he asked these questions, Narad Muni replies, study of the Vedas bears fruit when one performs abundant sacrifices. That means people perform sacrifices, and those sacrifices give results when the Vedas when one studies the Vedas and performs the sacrifices. The study of the Vedas bears fruit when performs abundant sacrifices. The next one, he says, the knowledge of the Shastras bears fruit when it results in good behavior. That means scriptures are necessarily required for the progress of humanity at all point of time. And these scriptures should result in good behavior and humility. So when this is the outcome, then knowledge of the Shastras has given fruit. Then he says, wealth bears fruit when one enjoys it or gives in charity. That means many might have wealth, but if they don't give, that means they may not, or if they don't give it in charity, or if they don't enjoy, wealth has no meaning at all. And similarly, lastly, he says, wife bears fruit when she produces children. So there is no point in having a wife and not having children, which is a common practice these days. So this is how it is mentioned that just Shastras itself are not enough, but the Shastras will bear knowledge when the Shastras, hearing of the Shastras has to result in also in application of the Shastras, that is Jnana and Vijnana. Jnana is the knowledge that is coming from the Shastras, and Vijnana is the application of Shastras, which should ultimately result in good behavior and humility. That is the effect of the Shastras. The Shastras are not just enough, but then it requires a Sadhu and Guru also. That's why normally we say Sadhu, Shastra and Guru. So of all the sages, Vyasadeva is the greatest of all. And among great thinkers, it is mentioned that I am Ushana, the Krishna says, I am Ushana. So Kavis are those who are capable of thinking through thoroughly on any subject matter. Okay, sorry, it got cut off. So Kavis are those who are well versed in the Shastras, and they can analyze the Shastras from every point of view. And it is mentioned, Srimad Bhagavatam also, that one who has read these Shastras and they can analyze, and not only analyze, but they can also argue from all points of view. I don't know why. Is it okay? Are you able to hear? Because I get a message. Hare Krishna.
In between, we could not hear. Now we can hear Prabhuji.
Now it's okay. Okay. So these Kavis are those who are well versed in the script, Vedic knowledge.
Again disconnected.
No,
now
it's
okay.
not from my side. It's from the other side. I think that it's not from there. Okay. So these Kavis are those who are well versed in the scriptures, and they can argue the scriptures from all point of view. I mean, even in Chaitanya Charitamrita, there is a mention as to how when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was present, he would argue even at his very young age, because he was a great scholar. So he would make Gatadhara Pandita, and he would argue with him. He would convince what is right to be wrong, and he would convince what is wrong to be right. This is how generally the Kavis are. And here some examples are given that some of the names are Ushana, Shukracharya. Shukracharya was actually the spiritual master of the demon, but he was also a great poet, and he was a great thinker. So they are all normally good thinkers. So Shukracharya is another representative of the opulence of Krishna. There is a mention of Shukracharya in the Srimad Bhagavatam 8th canto also, wherein Bari Maharaj, Vamanadev asked for 3 steps of land, and with 2 steps, the Lord conquered the topmost and the bottom of the entire universe, and still 1 step was left out. So Vamanadev asked Bali Maharaj where should he place his 3rd feet. At that time, Bali Maharaj replied that you can place it on mine, because Bali Maharaj didn't have anything at that point of time. So finally, he asked Vamanadev to place his 3rd feet on his head. At that time, Shukracharya actually forbade Bali Maharaj not to give, because he said that this is none other than the Supreme Lord, Personality of Godhead, Krishna himself. And if he takes, you will lose everything in life. Shukracharya that way forbade Bali Maharaj, but finally Bali Maharaj was convinced that surrender was the only thing that is left out in his human form of life, and he gave up everything, asking Vamanadev to place his head on his the 3rd feet on his head. So this is where Shukracharya was actually, though it is said that he was a spiritual master of the demons, but was well versed in scriptures, but still he performed that Lord based on the instructions of the Lord itself. So that is how among the thinkers, Ushana, Shukracharya, are all some examples. And that capability also comes from Krishna. In the text number 38, it is mentioned that amongst all the means of suppressing lawlessness, I am punishment. So we see that many times miscreants or demons are punished or they are killed. And that ability to kill also comes from Krishna. And some examples are there in the Srimad Bhagavatam. For example, Varahadev, the Lord has appeared as Varahadev and killed Hiranyaksha. And Narasimhadev appeared and killed Hiranyakashipu. So this ability to suppress and punish also comes from Krishna only. So suppressing lawlessness is what is called punishment, and that art also comes from Krishna. Then he says that of those who seek victory, I am morality. Yeah. So in Bhagavad-gītā 1878, the Lord Sanjay in fact concludes Bhagavad-gītā saying that wherever there is Krishna, the master of all mystics, and wherever there is Arjuna, the supreme archer, there will always be opulence, victory, extraordinary power, and morality. This is my opinion. That means wherever Lord is present, there will always be victory, and there will always be opulence, extraordinary power, and also morality. The next point that he says is that of the secret things, I am silence. So silence is a very vital aspect in spiritual life, particularly. Srila Prabhupada always gives a quote that one should never discuss Gramya Katha, one should always discuss only Krishna Katha. And the beginning of devotional service, of the 9 process of devotional service, starts with Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Swaranam, Padanam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. So the first process that starts in devotional service is Shravanam. That is, you hear. And then what you hear, you speak. So that Shravanam is very, very important. And if one has to hear positively, then he has to be silent. You can't keep speaking and at the same time hear. So one has to keep silence to understand Vedic knowledge. Not only in Vedic knowledge, among the material this thing. If one wants to speak, one should be a good hearer also. So silence, that silence is from Krishna. Then there is a mention of the wise. Krishna says, I am the wisdom. So a wise man is one who can discriminate what is good and bad and what is right and wrong. Srila Prabhupada here gives an example. That real wise quality of wisdom comes by taking knowledge which can discriminate between matter and spirit. The matter itself does not exist on its own. It requires the presence of spirit. So that is why we see that we have a human body, material body, but that body is of no use unless and until the spirit soul is present. As long as the soul is present within the body is active. Otherwise, the body becomes dead. So that knowledge by which one can get to understand what is matter and what is spirit, that is the real knowledge. And also that which can differentiate between what is God's superior and inferior nature. That knowledge is nothing but Krishna himself. So there is an explanation given in Bhagavad-gītā itself. There are 2 types of nature, para and apara. That is, one is a superior nature, that is spiritual nature, and the other is inferior nature. If you see even the entire planetary system in the material creation, all the planets are floating within the air. And like I mentioned at the beginning of the class, we can't hold even a small thing. If we leave it, it falls down. But the force of gravity, Srila Prabhupada gives an example of how aircrafts fly in the air. It is due to the balancing of the 4 different types of air that is there. And when that balancing is perfect, then the aircraft flies. So similarly, the whole planetary system is balanced within the ether, air, because the Lord is present in each of these as Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. If you see in the beginning of the class, I explained how the Lord expands as quadruple expansion. So from that second quadruple expansion, that is Sankarshna, the Lord expands himself as Sri Mahavishnu. As Sri Mahavishnu, when the Lord exhales, innumerable number of universes, millions of universes come out of the pores of his body. And further, from that Sri Mahavishnu, he is also called as Karanodakasai Vishnu. That is, the Lord lies in the causal ocean. That is why he is called as, it's an ocean of causes. We have ocean of water, we have ocean of salt water, so forth. So similarly, there is an ocean of causes, and that ocean of causes is called Karanodakasai Vishnu. From there, Sri Mahavishnu further expands as Garbhodakasai Vishnu, and he enters into each and every universe as the Paramatma feature. And it is because the Lord is present as Paramatma, he is known as the super soul of each and every universe. And because of that reason, the universes also float in the air. And further from Garbhodakasai Vishnu, the Lord expands as Kshirodakasai Vishnu. And because of the presence of the Lord within us as the super soul, our body is active. So this is how this knowledge is given in the Shastras. And without the presence of spirit, matter does not have any life. So the universes also can't float within the air, and we also cannot be active without the presence of the soul. That is what is called superior knowledge and the inferior knowledge. And the superior knowledge are the God's superior energy, and the inferior natures are the dull material body or even material universe. And that knowledge here is what is explained is what Krishna himself, because Bhagavad-gītā is recited by Krishna himself to Arjuna, and Srimad Bhagavatam is a compilation by none other than Krishna's incarnation, that is Vyasadeva, which we discussed. So Vedic knowledge is that which gives the understanding of difference between matter and spirit, and that comes from none other than Krishna. And the one who has narrated this also Vyasadeva, who is an incarnation of Krishna. So Shastras are the basis of knowledge, and this particular knowledge, Vedic knowledge, is given to us to increase our faith in Krishna. Now, if somebody says Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, we may not believe straight away. But if somebody gives a quote that Bhagavad-gītā is recited by Krishna to Arjuna in the midst of the battlefield, which took place in Mahabharata, then one develops faith. So that is the reason, particularly the Vedic scriptures given to us are very, very deep in philosophy, and that's why it is that this knowledge gives an understanding by which we can increase our faith towards Krishna, and that faith and understanding comes from Krishna. So these are the important points in today's class. So if anybody has got any questions for the next 2 minutes, you can ask me.
Prabhuji, the Vishnu within us is Kshirodakasai Vishnu or Garbhodakasai Vishnu?
Garbhodakasai Vishnu is the Vishnu within the universe. The one who is within us is Kshirodakasai Vishnu, Super Soul.
Okay, Prabhuji, thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Anybody else? So if there are no questions or comments, can I leave? Can I take the class as complete?
Yes, Prabhuji.